Hi, I'm Vin with Boris FX, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use Extruded Spline and other BCC effects to create animated futuristic lower thirds like the one you see here. Now there are a couple of things going on here, and to fully recreate this effect I'm going to want to break it apart and tackle each section individually. The two main components of the effect are this 3D looking projector array and the text itself. Now the individual steps are easy to recreate, but there is some keyframing involved. Okay, let's get started by taking a look at how to create the lower thirds projector array. Now I have my clip which I've dropped into a new comp. The first thing I want to do is create a new solid and name it bottom layer. I'm going to go to my effects and presets and type in BCC Extruded Spline. Drag and drop that right onto my solid. Now right out of the gate I get this gray rectangle, which is fine, but I want to be able to fully customize this shape. To do this I'm going to set my path type to AE Mask. This will allow me to select the pen tool and draw any shape that I want. In this case I'm going to draw a parallelogram. So once I have my shape the way I want it, I'm going to change my AE Mask parameter to Mask 1. This will generate an extrusion based off the mask that I just drew. From here I can go to town setting up the first part of my lower third. In the transform group I will set my rotate X to -35 and move the XY position to the lower left of the screen. From there I'm going to go down to my deformer subgroup and enable curl. I'm going to set the angle to 1 rotation at plus 265 degrees. Next I'm going to hit the stopwatch for the amount to set a keyframe at the very beginning. I'm going to set that value to 129 and then advance 1 second and set the next keyframe value to -5. What this does is it causes the object to unroll onto my clip. Now that's very cool. Okay, now for the next part. Now while I could recreate a brand new solid and redo everything I just did, it's worth noting that the animation for the top layer is actually identical to the original. So to make things easier for myself, I'm just going to duplicate my layer and rename it Mesh. If we look at the original animation, we can see that the top layer rolls on after the bottom layer. So to recreate this, I'm just going to offset my new layer by 16 frames. Next, I'm going to scale it down to about 76 and reposition it so that it fits directly on top of my bottom layer. Okay, here's where things get interesting. While the bottom layer just used the default colors, I want to recreate this meshed look. To do that, I'm going to need to import some sort of texture. And now I have this metal texture loaded into my project, but you can grab any texture image file that you want. To quickly apply this mesh texture, I'm going to drop the image file directly into my comp and place it at the bottom of my stack. Feel free to turn off the eye since we're not going to need the layer to be visible. Next, I'm going to select the material count on my top layer and change that to 2 front, back bevel. This will allow me to update both the front texture as well as the back and the beveling. In the front material group, I'm going to set my texture file to none and my texture layer to use the texture file we just added to the comp. I'm also going to set the scale X and Y to 30 to reduce the size of the mesh pattern. Next, I'm going to go to the bevel side material group. I want to change the diffuse and highlight color chips to what we have in the example. Now you can set them to any color you want, but to recreate the look of my original effect, I'm going to set it to a nice blue-green. If you're curious, the hex code for the color I used is 1FCDE2. Once that's done, I'm going to go to the light subgroup and move my light source to right about here. This is going to focus the glow on that lower edge which is closest to the camera. With that done, I'm going to close this group to clean things up and then select BCC Fast Film Glow from my Effects and Presets menu. And I'm going to drop that right onto my mesh layer at the bottom of my effects stack. From here, I'll set my glow radius to 5 and my glow threshold to 33. Now as you can see in the original effect, when the top spline rolls out it starts to power up and we get this flicker as it comes to life, much like a fluorescent bulb coming on. To recreate this, I'm going to need to set a few keyframes for the glow intensity. First, I'm going to go to frame 123 and set my glow intensity stopwatch to 0. At frame 201, I'll set another keyframe for 300 and then advance every few frames alternating between high and low intensity values. For example, 203 we'll set at 20, 205 we'll set at 300, 207 to 70, and finally 213 will go to 400. When I play it back, both my splines roll out and flicker to life. I could, if I wanted to, add some sort of nifty sound effect here and really sell that effect. Alright, let's collapse all of this and start working on the animated text projection. As I said earlier, this is just basic text created with the text tool. Whatever I type, I want to turn it into a 3D layer so I can better position it using the rotation tool. I can also scale it down a bit so that it appears to hover over the projector itself. Next, I'm going to go to my effects and presets and type in BCC Video Glitch. Drop that right on my layer. Now here's the thing with Video Glitch. By default, it creates random instances of video damage. Now I could certainly leave it like that, or I could go in and specify when and where I want my glitch to occur. To do this, I'm going to set my trigger mode to intensity threshold. And what this does is it prevents a glitch from occurring until the glitch intensity is more than or equal to the intensity threshold. To create glitches at specific points, I can create keyframes adjusting the glitch intensity above and below that threshold. To recreate the original effect, I'm going to move my CTI to 212 when my text first appears and set the stopwatch for glitch intensity to 0. Then I'll move it ahead one frame and set it to 40. Another frame to 100. Another to 10. Since I don't want to keyframe every single frame, from here I'll jump up to 223 and set it to 30. At 306, I'll set it to 10. At 308, I'll set it to 30. At 322, to 10. And 406 to 30. Fun. Lastly, I'm going to go to my shift group and set the intensity to 99 and the shake group intensity to 100. Alright, that's enough of that. The last thing I want to do with this text is apply an instance of BCC Fast Film Glow. I'm going to set the preset to Vertical Cool, drop the intensity to 26, and while we're at it, we're going to increase the glow under source to 100. Once that's done, I'm going to duplicate the effect, but this time I'm going to swap the X and Y values and drop the intensity to 14. Once that's done, I could call it quits because it's looking pretty good, but I want to add a couple of finishing touches. Since this is a text projection, I want to see it reflected in the projector itself. To do this, I need to duplicate my text layer and rename it Reflection. I'm going to use my Rotate tool to reposition it on the spline object itself. Once that's done, I'm going to drop the opacity to 26 and change my layer type to Add. Now I don't need the video glitch, so I'm going to remove that and I'm going to replace it with BCC Fast Lens Blur. This is a very powerful filter and I only need a little blurring, so I'm just going to set my iris scale to 2. So this is starting to look really great, but the only problem is that the reflection itself is static. It doesn't move when the text does. To fix this, I'm going to apply BCC Grunge and set my texture to LT Gallery 1. I want to disable everything except for shake. In the subgroup, I'm going to set the X position to 4, and once again I'm going to have to set some keyframes. I'm going to set the stopwatches for keyframe speed and random amount. As I move through the timeline, if the text itself is glitching, I'm going to set the speed to 100 and the random amount to 70. If the text is not glitching, I'm going to set both to 0. Just remember to duplicate the previous keyframe and set it to the frame before you want the change to occur. This way the effect turns on and off without interpolating through a change. Okay, once all that's done, we can throw on the last of our finishing touches. Create a new adjustment layer and apply BCC Fast Film Process. From there we're going to select the preset Highlight Boost Color Shift. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and throw on BCC Vignette. I'm not going to worry about any settings because its default works really nicely. I'm going to go back to the beginning, let those frames cache, and that's all there is to it. I'm Vin Morreale, and for more great tutorials, don't forget to check out the Boris FX website. Take care!